Right. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good afternoon. How are we doing?
Or evening, according to where
Evening.
you're watching it and when you're watching it. Yes, that's right.
Welcome back to your new year, David.
Thank you very much. Yeah, nice holiday week we had last week. It was nice weather.
You know, Callie and
in
I
the
were soldiering on.
Yeah, I did watch it just to make sure that you were behaving yourself. You know, well, no, I didn't. I'm lying, really. I saw it had been. I
Don't worry.
I saw that you'd done it, and I knew that Harry would not have dreamt of putting it up online if you'd have been doing anything that was wrong or against official directives. So I guess
We were a bit rebellious, weren't we, Callie?
Yeah, I did see
Yeah,
that.
yeah. We stuck to the readings. That was quite rebellious.
That's rebellious. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, you know, have you?
No chat.
I hope you've all got your Christmas cribs still up in your churches
Yes.
No.
until Candlemas. You meant to have them there till
Yes.
Candlemas, Chris.
It has
I know,
nothing
but
to
you
do with the fact
try
that we haven't got round to
controlling our
taking it
lovely
down
folk.
yet.
You are, Chris.
You try controlling our lovely folk in our little villages.
Yeah, what you have to do is
and
you have
trying
to,
to change any of their traditions of the way things are done.
well, what you have to do is go and put them back up when they've taken them down. It's a battle, but it works. I did that many years ago in Shropshire. But the cathedral leave their tree up, of course, till Candlemas.
I think the West Bay is the West Bay one still up.
I don't know. I haven't been to West Bay for the last week. So
No, have I for the last week, come to think of it.
But no, so cribs are up. Dear you may wonder what the hell we're talking about. The season of Christmas does not stop on Boxing Day, as most people seem to think, having had their decorations up since the end of October, and they get tired and fed up of them. The season of Christmas within the church goes on for 40 days and ends officially with the Feast of the Presentation of Christ in the Temple, otherwise known as Candlemas.
Which is a really lovely festival, all-age festival.
It is beautiful, and I shall be sprinkling people with water at the end of the service from the font, and parading people around with candles and things. No doubt. So there we are. So that's what we were talking about. So yeah, if you've taken your crib down and you want to extend the Christmas feeling, put it back up again until February the 5th. That's when Candlemas is, February the 5th. But today, Chris, as you seem to be in the middle of us on my screen, the three of us, I'm on your right, and Callie's on your left, and it would be good if you could decide: do we do the gospel reading, the wedding at Cana in Galilee?
Because Rural Dean said, I like the wedding of Cana in Galilee.
Well,
and then I thought, the first thing I'm going to challenge him, because I've done it, this is my third year now at the wedding of Cana in Galilee, is how many bottles of wine did Jesus make, David?
I know. Yes, that's why I chose to do it, Chris. Cause I only mentioned this to Reverend Neary the other day when we were at prayers together. I said, you do remember, don't you, that Chris actually worked out exactly how many bottles of wine were made from the water, and it was something like 2,363 and a third or something, wasn't it?
No.
It's so going against the spirit of the story to work that out. It's just supposed to be endless.
Oh, Callie, I might have known your legal mind and raise that point.
Work out if you had. It was about 1,000.
No, it's my innumerate mind, David.
Yes,
the one bit that's missing.
I can't even say the word. Never mind understanding.
The one bit missing from the equation was the number of people for which to divide the wine up that was made.
There was.
Oh, you're such an engineer, Chris.
Well,
the thing about it, Chris, is of
can't
course,
get it out of me, can I?
The problem is, Chris, if they had have run out because there were more people than there were wine, of course he could have repeated the same sign, couldn't he?
They'll have passed out before it ran out.
Never going to run out.
Out.
Exactly, Callie. And what does that message say?
Not if there were 3,000 people there, they wouldn't, because they'd have all had just a small amount, wouldn't they? We don't know.
What was the population of that area at the time?
27, I think. I don't know. If it was held in the village of Sebra, which is one of it is our smallest parish, I'm told that there are only 38 residents in Seabury, so they could have had a really good time, couldn't they?
For a long time.
They'd have partied for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we are. So yeah. So
Anyway,
so,
are we going to rely on somebody legal like Callie to bring us back to the reality and the spiritual side of the wedding at Cana in Galilee?
Shall I read the reading?
Yeah, what a good idea, Callie. Well done.
Read the Bible, but there's a novelty.
Are we having a pause, or does Harry say we don't need
We
pause?
carry on now. No pause needed.
No pause needed. Okay, well, straight into John chapter 2, verses 1 to 11 then. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now, standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who'd drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Going back to your numbers, they've already been drinking, so we don't know how much they've already drunk.
So does this mean that Jesus was quite happy letting people drink too much? There's no Puritan side here. Actually, look, you've already drunk too much. Stop it. You're on water now, lads.
Was this the message you received last week on the chapter curry outing? Stop drinking because you're all driving home, except Callie, who could walk, of course.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
but of course, they wouldn't have had motor cars, so they wouldn't have needed to worry about that.
Well, but perhaps you could have been done for being drunk in charge of your donkey or camel. You don't know, Chris. However, that's just me distracting the real essence of what that story is about. I mean, what fascinates me at this time of year as we now leap to this sudden moment, having not got to the point where Jesus has visited the temple of the baby. We kind of swap back and forth. And we had the birth of Jesus, and then we jumped on to the following Sunday, the story of Jesus being lost in the temple when he's about 11. Nothing in between. Then we go back again to Epiphany, and now we jump to this. And in a few weeks' time, we were going back to his, whatever. It's all very confusing.
And we've had a baptism somewhere in the middle of it as well.
That was on Sunday, Callie. You may have remembered.
Exactly. So that all, but again, we're not in the,
We kind of jump all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think part of what amazes me is how little we actually know of the childhood of Jesus. Two of the Gospels don't even mention anything about it at all. Matthew kind of jumps from one to the other. And there's very little that we actually know about what happens. Other than he gets taken to the temple and his family kind of lose him for 5 days. I think a safeguarding issue needs to be struck up there. And
no, because actually it was a very different culture where they're sort of with extended family. So I think it'd be really easy to lose.
But in this time of going back and looking at what happened in the past, we can't allow that to get in the way of it, can we? you may remember.
I think he was in danger of letting truth get in the way of a good story.
Exactly, Chris. However, so you got to jump all around the place, and you suddenly this Sunday coming at a point where he's working according to which you want to call it, miracle or sign. When he turns the old, as we've been saying, turns all of the huge jars of water into the best wine you could possibly have. And then, of course, there's the interaction with his mother. And we've discussed that, Chris, before, haven't we?
Yeah.
How would our mother have felt if we'd have talked to her in the same way? I know what my mother would have done to me. I'd have had a punch around the ear hole or something.
I heard something really interesting about that perspective of Mary in this reading. So we don't have the birth narrative in John.
No.
We have to go to Luke and Matthew for all our wonderful nativity plays, and so there's something about Mary propelling Jesus out. It's not yet my time, but she sort of pushes him out, and it's almost as though that's John's version of Mary birthing Jesus, which was an interesting perspective. That thought had never occurred to me. It's quite a kind of sideways.
Yeah, I've got a book on my shelf called Turning Water into Wine, which was written by a retired Bishop of Derby, I think, or Repton in the Derby Diocese. I can't remember his name. I have to dig it out. And he actually raises what you're saying as part of the narrative of what he's trying to talk about the life of Jesus through John's Gospel. So yeah, good picking up there. It's interesting. It's an interesting note. But yes, if you look at those stories, when we read that story the week after Christmas of Jesus being lost and left at the temple and all the rest of it, it's his father he has a go at. Well, where do you think I would have been? I'm always with my father. How would Joseph have suddenly felt? And he is now saying to his mother, "Stop interfering. What's he got to do with you? It's not my time yet." And we pick up several of these kind of interactions between Jesus, certainly, and Mary. In the gospel passage, which always fascinates me, as to the as to the not the relationship as such, but the way that the person Jesus interacts with his family.
And yet, when at the cross, he's so concerned for Mary and John that he basically reconstitutes the two of them as a new family, doesn't he? He clearly has compassion for his mother.
He does. Chris, you're being very quiet.
I said my piece a few years ago when I calculated how many bottles of wine.
So the entire part of your sermon for Sunday will just be to tell people again how many bottles of wine they created. That'll be it.
No, you've got to go and drink all the wine that Jesus gives you.
That's interesting.
No, I won't. It's I just love reading John's Gospel because there's always this tension between the earthly and the spiritual. Mm-hmm. John's not concerned with anything earthly whatsoever. The only reason he'll write about anything earthly is to tell you a spiritual thing. Mm-hmm. And the spiritual thing here is Jesus gives you plenty. The life of Jesus is full of joy and abundance, and we can drink abundantly. And that's what life's all about. And we can get distracted on all these things, and it's great fun to calculate how many bottles of wine and the way he treated his mother and all those sorts of things. And we can read loads of things into how, yes, his mother was outing Jesus, making him start work. And we can talk about, well, how did Jesus' mother have the authority to order the stewards about and all those sorts of things. But actually, what's Jesus telling us? Come and have life. Life with Jesus is abundant.
Mm.
Because this particular story has been often recognised as the beginning of that very short, really, at time of what we class as Jesus' ministry, isn't it?
Mm.
Because it was a very, in essence, as far as we know from the gospel, passages that we have, that it was just a very perhaps 2.5 years or something in length between when he well, not officially, but when he seemed to start this mission or ministry work to when he died. So this story has kind of been credited, I think, certainly by theologians greater than myself, as a kind of signal that this is where it all began.
Well, the Bible text says it. This was the first of his signs.
Yeah, doesn't mean he hadn't been. Doesn't mean, of course, again, we don't know. It doesn't mean he hadn't been doing other things, but the first of the signs or.
Does bring you to mind a bit of Harry Potter, though, doesn't it? If you watch the beginning of the very first Harry Potter things, when he does some strange things to get back at his friends before he gets to Hogwarts.
Do you think that, going back to your earlier point, Chris, do you think, obviously all the Gospels describe the sacraments and are sacramental, but do you think that John is the most sacramental of the Gospels?
Used those terms before. I've always regarded it as it's pointing you heavenward. So in that sense, yes, I suppose it is, isn't it? Because Matthew, Mark, and Luke are pointing out the life of Jesus, how it points to the fact he was God, and looking at different audiences.
But then the Last Supper, the words of institution, aren't in John, as it were. But we've got the washing of feet. I think John is highly sacramental, though. Because of the physical and the spiritual.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And the physical signs of the spiritual transformation.
Yeah. I think, as Chris says, there is a distinct difference between the Matthew, Mark, and Luke gospel writings. They are chronologically a story in many ways, aren't they, of Jesus' life?
Yeah.
Although different in parts, and not all the stories occur in each of them, but some of them do. Mm. Whereas John's gospel was written much later. Yeah. I understand, perhaps 30 years after some of the others, and written by a man who is obviously deeply spiritual, as you say, Chris, because of the other writings that he does. If that wonderful revelation of St. John the Divine, which is so deep in spiritual meaning, I don't understand a lot of it, if I'm absolutely honest. So much I try and read it and study it, it is so complex in parts. And then you've got those 3 lovely letters, haven't you, of John? All deeply spiritual and quite divine in many ways. So, I guess John is coming from a different angle, having had more experience or chance perhaps to reflect and to look at Jesus' life, rather than just trying to say, this is what happened, this is why we look at him, because, he was born and he did this, and et cetera, et cetera.
Mm. So different from Luke, the other extreme, where, he's trying to give an orderly account of what happened, and, Luke, the Gentile who wasn't one of the 12, it's a very different perspective, isn't it?
It is. Oh, it is.
Aren't we lucky to have all 4?
Extremely. And we're very lucky to have very learned people who try to work out and help us to understand them.
We're very lucky to have you, David, and you, Chris, definitely.
I don't think that. I'm very lucky. I'm going to read a poem, which I occasionally do.
I was going to mention Jo, because she's the clever one amongst us.
I don't wish to promote her grandness any more than we need to, because she's marvellous. We know that. A lot of people who follow Rev Chat regularly, Callie, know that I'm a great lover of the poetry of
Oh,
Malcolm
Malcolm Guite. Yes, gorgeous.
although I don't class him as the greatest Christian writer, because that still, for me, lies with that great man of Salisbury. So I leave that. But Malcolm Guite wrote a poem as part of this book called "Sounding the Seasons," which was 70 sonnets for the Christian year. And I'll just share with you, viewers, the sonnet that he wrote called "The Miracle at Cana," because I think it ends and perhaps puts what we've been trying to badly put into perspective in one sentence. It goes like this: "Here's an epiphany to have and hold, a truth that you can taste upon the tongue. No distant shrines and canopies of gold, or ladders to be clambered rung by rung, but here and now, amidst your daily living, where you can taste and touch and feel and see. The spring of love, the font of all forgiving, flows when you need it, rich, abundant, free. Better than waters of some outer weeping that leave you still with all your hidden sin. Here is a vintage, richer for the keeping, that works its transformation from within. What price, you ask me, as we raise the glass? It cost our Saviour everything he has."
Mm. And that made
So
me
I think
think
note
of
to end.
those jars, the purification jars, and how, actually out of those jars came wine representing the blood of Jesus, and just a reminder that we're purified, we're cleansed, we're wiped of all our sin through Jesus
Yep.
and his sacrifice.
Healed, redeemed, forgiven.
Yeah, and that image of abundant life. Heaven is a heck of a party.
Yeah. Well, dear viewer, if you'd like to dispute the number of bottles that Reverend Grask has made, then I'll leave you to work it out mathematically and write to us and tell us. Because there was some dispute once before, I seem to remember, Chris, when you worked out these bottles. So if anybody knows any better, because of course it depends on what size of bottle you're using. I presume, Chris, you were working it out on a standard 70 centilitre bottle as opposed to a litre.
Yeah, we've got to remember the Bible does says each vessel held between 20 and 30 gallons.
Gallon.
So that's quite a huge variation, shall we say.
What's the Chris Grask figure again? I've got to write this down. What was it?
Oh, I estimated about 1,000.
1,000.
If I remember rightly.
She wants to use it in a sermon on Sunday, Chris. I hope she's going to credit you with this piece of fascinating information, just so that if she's wrong, she can blame you or me.
David, you're getting to know me so well.
You legal types, I know you too well.
That's the legal profession for you, isn't it?
There we are. There we are. Anyway, dear viewer, it's good to see you. Be back. We'll be back next week, hopefully. And again, we're always happy to receive your comments and your wise words. So don't hesitate to send a message to us if you'd like to. So that's it. We'll see you all next week.
See you all.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye.